Oh, Mr. Doyle texted you. What did he say?
Mr. Doyle said, see, I'm reading. I've been a marching band. I'm going to bring another disc for the promotion ceremony.
Another disc. Why?
I don't know, but I just read that, and that's what we do during the summer. We read.
We read. We do have to read. We have to read a lot of books. In the high school, you have to read a lot of books.
How many books do you have to read this time?
I don't have to read books. I had just check out one book and then have to do a lot of work in it.
What do you have to do?
The AP Lit book.
Oh, it sucks. I have to read 3 books. Three. Three whole
Yeah.
books.
Yeah,
Chapter
so-
books, too, not like picture books. Like
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I know that at our telethon, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Vizzini talked to, who did he talk to?
Oh, who was it? You?
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
I think it might have been the Drew Boo.
You think so?
I think it was Drew Boo.
Oh God.
Yeah. I think it was Drew Boo.
What?
Yeah, so why don't you go check out Faz talking to Drew Boo about summer reading.
I can't stand you.
Hi, I'm Kobe here with Mr. Mazzini talking about the summer reading. So, what's on the list this year for all the grade levels?
Well, we have a whole new lists, new series of lists for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Some old favorites, but some new ones. For 9th graders, for the weighted honor students, they're again reading Five People You Meet in Heaven. This year there were some new additions to the 10th grade list, The Patron Saint of Butterflies and Into the Wild. For the 11th grade list for the weighted honors, Streetcar Named Desire, Lesson Before Dying, and for students who were taking AP, Elements of Style, The Scarlet Letter, and A Lesson Before Dying. And seniors are instructed to see their 11th grade teachers for this year to get the specific requirements. Now those have been handed out, and all of the assignments have been handed out as well. And also people can go on the link, www.nasd.k12.pa.us. And on the left-hand side, there's a link that's being updated with the summer reading assignments and the books.
Okay, so how do the 8th graders get this information?
8th graders all came up for tours of the building last week. I mean, last week you may have seen them running around the building to and fro.
Right.
They were going and they were just getting a tour of the building. But in addition to the tour, their principals received some of the summer reading information. The principals received all of the forms so that students could order them.
Mm-hmm.
The principals also received the assignments that the students were going to be asked to do with some annotations in their books, just to be ready to when they come back next year.
Okay, so why is summer reading assigned each year?
Summer reading is assigned for a couple very important reasons. First and foremost, and most importantly, reading enriches and strengthens the mind and spirit.
Right.
So when you're engaging with a book, people say, why don't I just go to watch the movie?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you go and you watch a film version, even if it's a film version of a great book or if it's a great script, you are, I don't want to say subjected to, because that might not necessarily be the right word, but you are limited to the director's vision. He tells you where to look, he tells you what to see, and kind of in a way tells you what to think. What books do is they open up a whole new avenue of discovery. So when you're looking and you're reading that book, you are in fact kind of the director of your own film. You're casting it, you're thinking about these characters in these different situations.
Right.
And you are engaging the imagination and all of your faculties as you're working through and reading a book.
Right. So, what should the students expect when they come back to school after reading the book?
There are going to be assessments. Again, students need to speak to the teachers that they have right now. So for instance, 9th grade students talk to their 9th grade teacher and they get the forms and they'll also get their specific assignments. In many cases, those will involve annotating or taking notes directly in the book, which is a really great way for students to interact with the text right there. They can write it, they could take notes. So, you had me for English, you know what the annotations game is all about.
Mm-hmm.
So you take the notes right in the book, and then you're able to work through it and maybe circle some vocabulary words that you don't know, look them up to find them in the margins, take and trace kind of characters' motivations, and even something as simple as the plot. If you're having difficulty, what's happening in this one chapter, tracing it to the next.
Right.
Do it like that.
So what happens if they don't read it?
If they don't read it, when students come back, that's not necessarily an advantageous move for students in 2 ways. One, it will hurt their grade. But 2, students who aren't doing their reading over the summer are unprepared when they come back. And let me give you a very real-world example of how that works. So let's take juniors, for instance. When juniors come in, one of the first things they're going to be doing, middle of October, is the PSAT. The PSAT has a lengthy writing section, there's a reading section, and then a math section. If you haven't been doing anything with your reading all throughout the summer, you're going to backslide up to possibly an entire grade level worth of gains that you had made the previous year. You're going to backslide because you haven't been doing anything over the summer. You're a runner.
Right.
Let's think of it like this. Let's say that you have been running and training for cross country, but then you stop. You say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to relax on the couch. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to eat some chips, and I'm going to, I'm not going to run at all.
Right.
But then, in the summer, you say, I want to run a marathon. After not having trained for months and months and months, what happens?
You do terrible.
You do terrible. You can't even complete the marathon because you haven't been building up the necessary skills and the
endurance.
necessary strength and the necessary endurance.
Right.
Reading, when people say reading is frustrating, well, reading can be if you haven't been doing it. But if you read something every day and if you keep your mind sharp and alert, reading is ultimately one of the best, the greatest activities that one can do for oneself in terms of awakening the imagination. And it's not a frustrating experience. It's like it's a life-affirming experience. It's a wonderful experience. It's an experience that, unlike any other, really does awaken and engage the imagination. But it's very frustrating if you don't do it. And it's very detrimental scholastically if you don't do it, because so much of what we do every day in school revolves around reading in college. I mean, there's so much reading to do. So if you haven't been preparing yourself, if you haven't been training, so to speak, it's going to be difficult to be successful when it comes time to take some of these high-stake tests, like the PSAT and AP tests, but also to be able to really do well in college and beyond, which is in high school, what we're trying to prepare students for, preparing students for their futures. And in the future, there's a lot of reading involved.
Right.
So let's start now. Let's do it right.
Sounds good. Now, you mentioned annotations. Now, are those required?
For some of the books, or for some of the grades, again, students need to speak to their teachers that they have this year about what assignments are for next year. Every student in every class got an order form where students can order books through Barnes & Noble, through us if they want, but they also got a form that says the specific assignments that are going to be required for their next year's teachers. So all of that is explained in there.
Okay, now are there any packets that the students may have to do?
For AP Literature, for example, which is Mrs. Lobig's class in 12th grade, students have a packet that gives them some detailed instructions about how and what they need to complete for next year. But every class has something like that with the specific requirements.
Okay, now for AP and weighted honors, do students have to get a prerequisite for it?
Yeah, well, there are prerequisites for weighted honors courses. Oftentimes it's a B or better in the previous year's weighted honors course. But there are some things that students can do, even if they haven't met the prerequisites, maybe taking the honors class, and then let's say they want to take AP 12th grade year, but they haven't taken an AP class before. Well, take some weighted honors classes, get ready, build up the kind of academic rigor, and then maybe in 12th grade, see if you can take the AP class if you've gotten a B or better in your AP classes or weighted honors classes before that.
Right. So can you tell again where you can get the books?
Well, Mr. Schmalbach has, and Barnes & Noble, has extended the deadline to be able to order the summer reading books through us up until June 5th. We don't want to really wait too long past that because Barnes & Noble won't be able to guarantee that the books can come in. It takes them about 10 days. But because of all the snow, the school's now going to June 18th. Well, not for you so much.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I assume you're leaving on Friday.
Yes.
But for many students, and for all the underclassmen, of course, school ends on the 18th. So the books will be in that week, and students will have the opportunity to go pick them up. But if you wanted to order a book through the high school, you need to have the green order form, which you got from your teacher. Then you go and you bring that to Mr. Schmalbach with your money, and then the books will be in 2 weeks.
Okay. Now for 8th graders, I know it's a little different rigor-wise with the academics in middle school. Now, can they take weighted honors courses in 9th grade?
Sure.
How can they do that?
Their teachers have worked with them through the scheduling process, and some of those students have been recommended to take honors courses so that when they come into high school, they'll be ready to hit the ground running.
Okay. Now, how do these books get picked?
The books get picked, the English department meets,
Okay.
And then we work in conjunction with some members of the administration to kind of go over some titles and think about what sort of books contain themes that are, interesting, relevant, and most importantly, challenging. Books need to be interesting,
Right.
yes, but they also need to be challenging.
Right.
You can't just read about things that interest you now, because the danger of that is you get stuck in those interests. You never stretch, you never think about anything beyond the stuff that your life is like now. So one of the great things about having a choice in these books is maybe you pick up something that you say, I never would have thought to read that book, and that book changed my life. Because a lot of times it's not the books you think, it's not the books that already contain the things that you're interested in that change your life or get you to think about things in a new way. It's those books that you say, man, I'm glad he made me read that. Or
Right.
I'm glad that I, took a chance, picked that book up and saw what it was all about. That really changed the way I think about something. And
Right.
that's another purpose of this summer reading, is to have students
Get engaged.
get engaged in some of these books that they might not have thought to pick up before.
Okay. Now, how you mentioned preparing for college and whatever other school they go on to. How does your class or these books do that?
Well, I'm not so much talking about just my class in particular, but what these books do. Remember taking the SATs.
Right.
Okay. So on the SAT, they'll talk to you about, they'll give you an essay prompt. That's this great, discussion of some overarching theme. Like, is it better to always tell the truth, or is sometimes a lie permissible, or something like that?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that having these texts of depth and complexity does is it allows us to have some framework through which to address some of these moral conundrums. It gives you a chance to see, as you read it, how characters in books, in these great and famous works, have dealt with some of these things in the past, and that you, in your own life, are not alone in confronting many of these issues. These issues have been around for a long time. These are things that are part of the universal human condition. These are things that other people have dealt with, and it gives us comfort, it gives us aid, it gives us a sense of solidarity with people beyond just our immediate circle in knowing that other people have had to deal with these things before. So it prepares you scholastically, yes, but it also makes you a better person.
Right. Now, I know the SAT is changing,
Right.
and how is that going to affect the reading list?
Well, the SAT has still been a little bit, some of its changes are still a little bit nebulous. We really don't know all
Right.
of them. There's going to be longer sections.
Okay.
The essay is going to be optional, but like the ACT, in most cases, students will still, you kind of still have to take it.
That's what I
you don't
did.
really take the ACT without writing.
Right.
So you would still take the essay portion. And they said that they were going to make them more, user-friendly writing prompts. I'm not quite sure what that means so far. But as far as that's concerned, going on the College Board's website and looking at some of those updates would probably be the best way to do that. But as we revise and as we continue to make additions to our summer reading list, we always have an eye on what will help students prepare for the realities of these very important tests
Okay.
in mind.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, just that it's very important to do the reading for many reasons. One, like I said, to make sure that scholastically we don't backslide in the summer and that we hit the ground running and we're ready to go when school begins. But also, it is our hope that as you explore these books over the summer, you find something that you're really engaged with and that ultimately, hopefully, can, if not necessarily change your life, maybe change the way you think about something and open your mind to new possibilities.
Okay, well, I thank you for being here.
Well, thank you.
I'm here with Mr. Vizzini talking about the summer reading list.